Well, no, convene rather. We'd both.
Yeah, we go.
We can leave right now. Bonnie, it's your show.
Okay. Am I on?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, everyone. As you know, you have a new booklet. It's an expanded booklet. This includes the biggest reason for the expansion is it includes the justifications from the department heads for the capital items they've requested. I've added a summary page, which is second page in, which includes a summary, and I'll go over that in a little bit more detail. I just want to give you an overview of the booklet first. So in this first section, you have the summary, and you have a couple of pages of fund balance information, which you have seen before. I just wanted to include them as part of, so you can refer to them as you're in your budget deliberations. The first section is revenue, and that has 2 pages of general fund revenue, and then it has 2 pages of an overview of all the funds, the proposed activity in fiscal 19, and what the beginning and ending fund balance, what the beginning fund balance in July last year was based on the audit, and what I'm projecting the fund balance will be at the end of June.
I have a quick question. Would you like answers as you go, questions as you go, or how would you like to proceed with this?
Actually, it's probably easier if you just ask them when they occur to you. That's
okay
fine.
with
Just giving us an overview now
Yes.
before we talk in detail?
Yes.
Okay.
This is just an overview, so you know what's in your booklet.
Thank you.
Most of this we're not even going to talk about today, but you will have it for the weekend because your heavy lifting really is next week when you do police, fire, public works, and stormwater's today, actually.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Today you have administration, town council, finance, inspections and planning, and stormwater. Next Tuesday, you have Dustin all day for all of the public works budgets. There are 5 of them, and accommodations tax and beach erosion. And then the final day, you have police and fire. So it's going to be 2 very long days. Okay, so back to revenue. The last thing in the revenue section is the schedule of fees, which has changed slightly. But this is the new proposed schedule of fees for fiscal 19.
Bonnie, can I just ask one quick question?
Sure.
Is there going to be have you heard of any rate increase for the fire fee? Is that,
I'm sorry, for the what?
have you heard about any rate increase regarding the fire fee?
Not yet. So we're working on the fire fee that's current now.
Right.
So it's just it's the exact same number.
In your network, have you heard of any?
No, I know that
rumors?
a number of things are being considered, but I don't think they're anywhere close to making a decision. You never know.
But
I mean,
Lisa, don't we have a meeting on May 3rd regarding fire fees?
Yes, you do.
Rich, May 3rd, I have a meeting with powers to be about the rates. May 3rd.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I just got it today. All right, Bonnie, sorry.
okay, that's okay. Okay, and then the next section is expenditures, and what you have basically is summaries of the it's a summary of all the general fund accounts, and also broken down into major general fund departments which have salaried employees in them, and non-major general fund expenditure departments that don't have employees. Then again, there's, actually, I can't remember if you got this on the 2nd, but here's a list of the capital outlay items that are included in the general fund expenditures, and there's most of them, 99% of them are general fund, but there is a UTV that's proposed for the accommodations tax fund. And then finally, in expenditures, you have your salary grade schedule again, same one that you saw 2 weeks ago. Then you have a tab for each department. And in those tabs, if there are capital items requested, you'll have justifications. These are written by the department heads, so they reflect the department heads' individual approach to requesting specific things. There are a couple of, as you know, there are a couple of staff additions. So there's a narrative from police and inspections and planning to support the request for new staff people. And fire, building inspections, and police, sorry. The stormwater tab includes Rich Baker's analysis of the plan from the engineer on how to go forward with that, and you'll hear more from Rich today on that. Powell bill, sunset at sunset. The accommodations tax fund is where you all fund outside, a request from outside groups for nonprofit, outside nonprofits for funding. So that the amount that's being requested today, will go into more detail when we do accommodations tax next week. But what you have in the book today is a copy of their application. We had requests from 4 different organizations: Brunswick Literacy Council, Brunswick Family Assistance, the Museum of Coastal Carolina, Ingram Planetarium, and the concert series. And then Dustin Graham has provided in the final tab, beach erosion. Dustin has provided a list of planned improvements to various walkways in fiscal 19. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Did anybody have any questions about the booklet itself?
Beach endorsements, while we're there, Dustin's going to give us the streets he's going to work on, or
That's-
what we'd like to work on?
That's what I just said.
I know, but it's not.
Oh, the street for paving?
Yeah.
Actually, I'll request it of him to have it ready by Tuesday.
Yeah,
He may already have it, I just don't have it.
Okay.
Bonnie, just a couple of questions so that I can. There's a possibility that with a legislative change that we requested Frank Eilert to do, is to use our beach nourishment funds for the stormwater management. If that is done, what is the impact on the budget?
Well, if it's for the amount that I'm proposing to take out of reserves to fund the stormwater plan would stay in reserves. It's 611,000, something like that.
Yeah.
So that money would stay in, there's 100, what I propose, there's 100 sitting in the future development fund with no claims on it. So that's 100, we need 611, so there's 511 that would be coming out of the general fund.
No, yeah, I see. No, I understand that.
So if it
but
comes out of beach erosion.
The bottom line that I'm trying to get to, could that have an impact on our tax rate? In other words, to reduce our tax rate?
Probably not. There are other things you can do to reduce the tax rate. Because this program, we're already, the way this is set up, and you all obviously, it's a draft. But as it stands now, there's $611 that's coming out of reserves. So if it comes out of beach erosion instead, it just stays in reserves. So one of the questions you would be asking is, do we want to reduce the tax rate in order to not keep money in reserves? That's basically what
Yeah,
you would
I mean,
be-
that's the bottom line. That's what
Right.
it comes down to.
Right. So,
Because the only major project that we, at least I foresee, is stormwater management. The major.
right,
I mean, we're not going to build another fire station, we're not going to have a park, we're not going to have, unless there's an emergency or a hurricane, but we have the 75% savings policy for that event.
right.
But Bonnie, there's also, can you make apparent to us other ways to reduce the taxes
Yeah, there are things that department heads would have said, put them at the bottom of their list that are included currently. We came up with a pretty easy list of 155,000.
And that would cut the rate by 1 penny?
1 penny, right. And that doesn't involve stormwater.
Okay.
Actually, it does involve one of the things that,
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
the things in the
Okay.
stormwater thing. Everybody gave up something, essentially, to meet your mandate of, what's highest priority.
Right.
So everybody gave up some, it amounts to, coincidentally, about a penny
Yeah.
on the tax rate. So, we can talk about.
Well, we can go through all that because
Mhm.
we may, yeah,
Okay. Any other questions on the booklet itself?
no.
Okay.
I don't.
I was going to talk about revenue first. I don't think it'll take very long. Definitely, town council, administration, and finance won't take very long at all because,
We don't get paid anything.
well, the budgets are reduced considerably. And we're not asking for anything. So we already have it all. What can I say? Okay, so please turn to your revenue section. This is the same format I used last year, so it's familiar to some of you, hopefully. General fund revenue is broken out into property taxes, or grouped according to property taxes, intergovernmental taxes, permits and fees, service charges, grants and donations, assessments, interest, and miscellaneous. There's a couple of notable changes from last year, but overall, if you go to page 2, and down towards the bottom, you see a line that says total before transfers. This budget, if you go to the last column, this budget is projecting or proposing a 537,000 increase over last year's budget. And the revenue is easier to see with all these columns. The expenditures are set up the same way, so you have a historic record. You have fiscal 16, fiscal 17 actual. Then you have fiscal 18 budget versus fiscal 18, what I'm projecting it's going to be at the end of June. And then the second to last column is proposed for fiscal 19. That last column shows you the difference between the fiscal 19 proposed budget and the fiscal 18 budget. And that would be the fiscal 18 budget as amended. So it includes all the amendments up to this point in time. So this is an actual current budget, the fiscal 18.
So that $537,000,
Right. I'm predicting we're going to bring in 537,000 more revenue than was budgeted in fiscal 18.
Yeah, this
But-
year.
This year.
Fiscal year 18.
Right. But the kicker is, if you look at the difference between the budgeted and the projected fiscal 18,
Right.
we're 30,000, 530,000 already.
Right.
More than was budgeted. So the increase that I'm proposing, the increased budget is more a reflection of reality as we know it. Not the budget, but reality. Because when we bring in more in property taxes, more in local option sales tax, when we bring in more revenue, it's an ongoing thing. It's a
Right.
fluid thing. So we don't do a budget amendment to show the increased revenue.
Right.
At the end of the year, we always, as I've said many
Yeah,
times,
there's-
we're always ending up with more revenue than was budgeted.
So in other words, our revenue source is extremely strong.
Correct. That's an understatement.
now where's most of that money come from? Accommodation tax?
Well,
or-
No,
Property
actually,
tax.
the accommodations tax is actually below the line. The accommodations tax is received in the accommodations tax fund. At the end of and then money is spent out of that fund for beach patrol and various things. At the end of the year, the accommodations tax fund is zeroed out and the money transferred to the general fund. So in this very last section of the revenue, down at the bottom, there's a section called transfers.
Right.
And I'm predicting that the accommodations tax, I'm proposing that we recognize that the accommodations tax will net to the general fund $400,000, $406,000. We were a little shy. We didn't, I don't think we're going to bring in as much as we had thought we would bring in this year. It's probably due to weather.
On the accommodations tax?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So I may be optimistic, thinking that next year we're going to exceed what I'm projecting for this year by about $40,000.
Yeah,
Either way,
That's
it's,
noise.
yeah,
That's noise.
yeah, it's a fairly fungible number.
You see, the
It depends on what happens with the cabanas.
thing that I toss around in my head,
Just saying.
Bonnie, is we're getting all this revenue. And we seem to not give a dividend to our taxpayers. And I just question that mindset, because you have to understand part of the reason for the strong revenue growth is that we had between the fire.
I understand that, Rich. I know this is something that you all are going to deliberate about.
Yeah,
That is something that you all deliberate about. It's nothing I can do. What I'm,
No, yeah,
what this
okay.
budget is, you know, whether I agree with you or not, it really doesn't matter.
doesn't, well, it does, but
Well, except that.
the numbers are
what
the numbers.
My job is to show the services that are provided in exchange for that revenue.
Right.
And whether or not if you want to cut service, you cut revenue. If you want to cut revenue, you cut service. It's a mathematical
Yeah, I understand.
relationship, equation. So when we get to the expenditures part of it, if you want to cut revenue, meaning reduce the property tax rate, you need to cut, you need to either do what the General Assembly, you know, follow the General Assembly's answer to, well, what am I trying to say? If the General Assembly agrees for Sunset Beach to use the beach erosion funds for the stormwater management, then you don't have to, I mean, then the money stays in reserves.
Right.
If it doesn't agree to let you do that, the money comes out of reserves. This shows that we are putting the money into reserves
Right.
this year.
Okay.
We're going to be putting over $850,000 into reserves,
Yeah.
adding, and there's no claim on it,
Yeah.
and taking out 600 next year, the way
No.
this budget is.
I know.
So if you want to, so the point is, everything else is funded through the current revenue stream. And it comes, again, from a variety of places, property taxes.
Yeah.
You can just look at the big
Sales
numbers,
tax,
local
yeah,
option, sales tax.
All that stuff.
Yeah, there's an assessment for Cobia and North Shore, that's
Mm-hmm.
in this budget. Building permits, the services, the burden to provide services to a larger and larger base is very apparent in our daily existence and our daily operations. Is also apparent in this budget because inspections and planning is saying it needs another building inspector
Right.
just to keep up with the load, the current load. And there's no sign of that abating. So there's,
Right, but some of that expense is absorbed by the additional revenue for the permits. Yeah,
some,
yeah.
yes. But
Okay.
we're like
No, I'm just-
a
yeah.
giant Venn diagram.
Yeah.
There's no clear separation.
No, I understand.
Between things,
No, I
so-
understand.
Okay. So just my point about the revenue, and we can talk about specifics. The projected revenue is based on projections that the League of Municipalities publishes every year. Local option sales tax is supposed to go up 5%, that kind of thing. And it's also based on opinions from the department heads, like building permits, you know, how that's going, and what it's likely to exceed or not exceed the current level. There's a bunch of things, well, interest, that one was, we had historically budgeted interest really low, but at this point, we budgeted in fiscal 18 interest earnings of $20,000 we're actually going to be closer to $46,000, more than double. So the new budget reflects that reality because interest rates are only going up.
Yeah, they're-
Thank goodness, right, which hadn't been the case.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the revenue in a nutshell, and like I said, again, you know, we can talk about individual things once you've had a chance to review. This next thing in the revenue section has each of the funds' activity and proposed activity for fiscal 19. And each one is a little different. We look at the general fund. We have a budget of fiscal 18 budget of $5,945,000. We are likely to bring in $6.3 million in revenue and spend $5.4 million in expenditures, which nets $853,000 surplus. And again, it's a projection, so we won't know for sure until the audit. So,
But Bonnie, real quick, that's a way to reduce the tax too, right there with that $800,000 surplus.
well, yes, except that if you do the stormwater plan, it takes it away.
This variables, no.
If the General Assembly doesn't go along
But if it
with,
does, we could use that fund to lower taxes if we had to.
well, it goes into the general fund, so yes, and that's
Yeah.
where you have, you know, your various levels that you want to keep. This is over and above the 75%, except that the 75% is based on your prior year's
Operating expenses.
general fund expenditures.
Right.
So if the expenditures go up, then that 75% is a larger number,
Right.
okay?
Bonnie, just one question.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed, and I don't know what page it is. It's under town revenue, I think, where it says all funds summary.
That's what we're looking at
Yeah.
now. Mhm.
This $400,000 for beach erosion tax, is that how much money we put in each year? That much? 400,000?
Yeah. It's a million generally between the two. 600,000 to accommodations tax and 400 to beach erosion.
That's revenue,
Right.
not
Right.
we put in, it's revenue.
Yeah, it's not the amount that increases the
Oh,
fund
yeah.
balance, because we spend some
Well,
of it.
it's,
We spend half of the accommodations tax and about a quarter of the beach
it's
erosion.
revenue created by us, by putting the money,
Well, it's
the
created by
account.
people paying 6% for the privilege of vacationing here.
yeah, that's the accommodation tax.
Right. And
I'm
so.
talking about the beach erosion.
Same thing. People pay 6%. 1% goes to the county, 2% is the beach erosion, and 3% is the accommodations tax. So we charge people 5% to vacation here,
Right.
or the owners of the vacation rentals pay 5%. 1% goes to the county. We have no control over that.
That's correct.
So the 5% that stays here in Sunset Beach is supposed to go for repairing the beach walkways and
Yeah,
maintaining the
it's-
beach and paying for the increased services that are required, police, fire,
Yeah, so
all
there's
of
certain
the
pockets that
departments,
it goes in.
all of them, pays
Okay.
for those because our population swells to a fairly high number, and those people need services, and they need to be taken care of. We charge people for the privilege of taking care of them while they're here. So you have to keep that in mind for the department's budgets. It reflects their reality, which is that, you know, more than 6 months out of every year, they're working for 3 times, 3, 4, or 5 times the general population. And that's a long period of time. You cannot, well,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, I'm just preaching to the choir. But don't lose sight of that reality. Those taxes pay for very real services.
Oh, no, no.
That are
There's no
provided.
question. We understand that, I think. I think I'm jumping ahead, but I think if we have a tax decrease, it has to be sustainable,
Correct,
not only for this year, but the following years.
correct. Okay, if there are no more questions about revenue, I skipped over the summary, so let me just go back to that. Second page in, says revised draft budget, starts with the budget offered for discussion. So it's the second page in. So this will give you just a brief summary of everything that's in this booklet. A list of major increases to various department budgets. For instance, the police department is proposing an increase of $360,000, primarily to accommodate 5 new vehicles and 6 new part-time officers. Now, when Chief Claymore gives his report next week, he will justify those and other requests.
Right.
So our purpose today is just to note that in
No,
summary.
this is nicely done.
Okay.
This is nicely done.
Is not to get a compliment, but just to give you some bullet points. So 360,000 for a police department, 115,000 for the fire department, and that accommodates full year staffing of 17 personnel. Last year, the current year's budget has the 3 new firefighters at half a year. So this reflects the fact that they will now be here for a full year, and the fire department is also asking for a part-time administrative assistant.
Right.
Inspections and planning has 1 new building inspector for 85,000. That is the person's salary, their fringe rate, which is 40 to 45% of their salary. So it's half again. That's what our fringe rate is for all employees.
It's 45% now?
Is 40 to 45%, that's correct. Between health insurance, 401K, FICA,
Yeah, the works.
pension,
Yeah.
the works. Well, but this is what other municipalities offer. It's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Everywhere I've been, it goes between 40, 45%. This one is actually between 41 and 45.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Okay. So it also reflects the fact that the new building inspector needs uniforms and has increased staff development, has training that will need to be. So that's all rolled into that 85,000. It's broken out in their individual budgets, but this is just glomming it all together. Streets has a $130,000 increase to the resurfacing next year is Crooked Gully and Baroni Place. Actually, I misspoke before, Mark, when you asked if Dustin had a list. I think it's going to be 100% Crooked Gully and Baroni Place. That's a $400,000 hit. So half of it is in the Powell bill and half of it is in the streets budget. But that's offset against resurfacing we had this year. So the overall increase to streets is part of Crooked Gully and Baroni Place, and also around 50,000 for a new chipper if you decide not to go with contracting out the leaf and limb. In the Public Works section is a staff report from Dustin breaking down what the leaf and limb contract would cost and the costs that would be offset, the in-house costs that are currently absorbed to collect leaf and limb. So you have basically a cost-benefit analysis in the Public Works tab.
Right. Bonnie, just to clear my head a bit, we get revenue from the state each year for the Powell bill.
Correct.
I don't know what that balance is.
144,000.
It's only 144,000.
Correct.
And if we have to pave Crooked Gully, I mean, that's already, I don't know if that's been allocated or not.
It is. It's in the budget.
It's in this budget
It
for
is in
fiscal
this
year
budget.
19. And the cost of that, if it exceeds what we have in the Powell bill, then it comes out of the direct expenses from the taxpayers, basically.
Yes.
It goes into the streets budget. How
Comes out
much?
of the general fund, is that what you're saying? If the Powell doesn't pay for it, does it come out of the general
The
fund?
streets budget, yes.
The streets budget.
And
In
generally
general.
what happens is
Yeah,
it's
but
half and half.
It's a direct expense to the taxpayer is what I'm trying to.
And as is the Powell bill is too. Okay, the Powell bill, 144,000 doesn't go very far. And over the years, the town has built up a small fund balance. So this year, we spent more than 144 out of the Powell bill. So that $25,000 budget amendment that you approved
Right.
on the April 2nd meeting, the reason why it was coming out of the Powell bill Powell bill fund balance is because we'd already spent the budget for the Powell bill.
Right.
144, like I said, doesn't go very far. So Crooked Gully and Barone Place are proposed to cost $400,000. So half of what is
No, I
proposed
understand.
here is that half will come out of the Powell bill, 200,000, which is 60,000 more than we normally get, which means 60,000 will be coming out of the fund balance for Powell bill. And the other half comes out of streets.
Right.
So even at that, which is huge, because normally the resurfacing does not cost
That much.
even 200,000.
That's correct.
So in order to get Crooked Gully and Barone Place done, other things have to make way. In the Powell bill, some of that money comes out of the fund balance for the Powell bill. In the general fund, other things are getting set aside.
Right.
So if, just looking at this, we've got the streets budget, we know we have 200,000 that we need for Crooked Gully and Barone Place for the general fund portion, half of what it's going to cost.
Right.
We also need a $50,000 chipper, it's $290,000, but yet the budget itself, the expenditure budget for streets is only increasing by 130,000. So the difference between 290 and 130 is money that got spent. The other things got shifted around in order to accommodate this.
Yeah.
So things are already being,
Yeah.
you know,
I understand that.
managed as a result of this need
Yeah.
that exists that isn't going to go away
Yeah.
until it's addressed. Okay. And stormwater, the $570,000 is a combination of a bunch of different things. The stormwater budget department is new this year. Last year, Rich's position and other stormwater-related things were funded out of environmental protection. So that budget went down because it no longer has stormwater stuff in it. The stormwater department went up above 570, but the net of those is about 570.
Yeah.
That's
So-
why that number doesn't correspond
So
exactly.
Dustin will be going through all
Yes,
the things that he needs in the stormwater people. So-
yeah, that's why his day is
Yeah.
a long one. Okay, as I mentioned, April 2nd, this budget also proposes up to a 3% merit increase for all full-time employees. Whether they get it or not is up to the department head. However, the money is in the budget
Right.
should everyone be exemplary and everyone deserve a 3% merit.
Well, the only, I have no difficulty with the 3.0%, knowing that inflation will probably kick up a little. My concern basically was, last year, I think it was 2.5%. But it really wasn't, it didn't, from the data that I looked at, it didn't appear to be a performance-based merit system, because everybody got, just about 95% of the staff got 2.5%.
From where I sit,
Yeah.
as a staff member, I think everybody puts in 125% personally. I have never seen a harder working staff. It may very well be that everybody did in fact deserve it. I think they did.
Well,
I mean, I work with them every day. I mean, if you have an issue with individual people, it's obviously between you and the department head. But I don't think it's a good assumption, because we work really hard, and I see it every single day.
We also went
Laura,
last year.
Again,
we-
and then
oh,
John, okay.
This may not be the time to ask this question, but for merit increases, do you have an evaluation form that, for instance, for a department head on this evaluation form, if he or she reduces overtime in their department, that's something they've done good for the town, and I would think that would add into their merit. Is there
Yeah, we have evaluation forms for staff, all staff.
okay. So you do have a good basis for what you,
Yeah.
and the employee knows.
The employee, it goes over with the employee, and the employee is given a chance to respond and also put in goals
Okay,
and critique.
okay, good.
Well,
It's
the only
my
suggestion,
turn.
I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah. I just point out that last year we had the 3% max merit increase in there also, that during the course of the discussions, seemed to be floating along fine. And then on the final day when we voted on it, it was cut down to 2.5% for a max saving of a little bit over $7,000 to the town.
Correct,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well-
The fact that it's in there at 3% doesn't mean it's going to survive as the 3% as we go
Right.
through here, despite what, you
Well,
know.
see, what I was anticipating when I looked at the salary sheets last year, I was looking for more of a variance. You know, and one of the things that I was suggesting is that, you know, a person can still get 5% if they're an outstanding performer. That's in my head. But if you give that person 5% who's an outstanding performer, and God bless them, somebody's going to get less than 3%.
Right.
So
Right, but
that's
that's-
just,
It wasn't a
that's not correct,
pool.
though.
No, no, I mean, that's not the way it was set up. It was not a pool.
Well,
It was up to 2.5%.
well, that's where we get hung up with the language and the interpretation of it. You know, when I look at a salary budget of 3%, there are people who are going to get more than 3%, and there are people who are going to get less than 3%.
Rich, they're not allowed to give more than 3.
That's not what we
Raise
set
the
up.
tops.
Well, why?
Because it's not a pool. If you vote for a pool,
Yeah.
then, but if you think of it, it is, the reason why nobody does it this way is because it's hugely demoralizing. Because one employee because one employee isn't like superstar, the superstar gets all the credit and the money, and the one person, the person who's not a superstar, says, well, why the heck am I trying? I will never be a superstar, but I am going to put my nose to the grindstone and get my job done. And that's, but what you have, I think the maximum reflects the fact that you have a group of equally dedicated employees. And 3%, I will tell you, is not much. But in this day and
Well-
age, it's about standard.
The problem
But it's
is,
not a superstar raise.
the problem is somebody making $32,000 a year and gets a 3% raise, and somebody making $90,000 and gets a 3% raise is a significant difference.
There is a significant difference, which is why we have the new salary schedule, which shifts everybody up so and it's supposed to reflect the fact, I mean, somebody making 90,000, presumably, they're worth it. You know, because of
Well, the skills
the
that the-
value that they add to the
Well-
town staff, to the policy making,
Do you
to,
recommend a scale program, a scale on raises?
I wouldn't, no, for that same reason, I think
Right.
it's highly demoralizing. Because regardless of what people make, everybody has the same set of rules. They all come to work at the same time. I mean, they work the same number of hours. They're all in the same class. They all get the same benefits. We're in this together.
Connie, what did Oak Island do?
They got merit raises up to a certain amount. They didn't do a pool. Southport didn't, Whiteville didn't. I mean, I've never seen anybody
Well, you don't
do a
consider this a
pool.
pool.
If it can fluctuate between 5% and 1%, I certainly do.
But at the max of 3, it's not a pool.
Oh, not this, but what we're talking about, no, up to 3%
When
is
we
across the
originally-
board. Everybody has the ability to get a 3%
When we
increase.
originally implemented the pay for performance, people were getting more and some people were getting less. And that seems to have changed so that we're more or less like a union structure. Everybody gets about the same amount of percentage.
That's one way to look at it, but I really don't think that that's appropriate in this case, because you do have a very dedicated staff. They get a lot done for, you know, the privilege of being an employee here. They give 110%, 125%, whatever. They give more than, they're not just putting in their time. And if you think that a specific person should not have gotten a raise because of something you've observed,
That's not my job.
well, then the department heads presumably are being paid to have good judgment.
Jan?
And that they,
Sorry about it.
The budget includes everybody getting 3%. Is that correct?
full-time, yes,
That's
up to 3%.
$123,000.
Right, so no more than that,
Right.
right, but if it's less, then there is
What
money
happens-
left over.
What happens to the money if there's less?
It goes back into the general fund.
Yeah,
Goes back to
yeah.
the general fund.
But,
Yeah.
but let me,
And that's what I don't like.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Serrato, but let me just point it out that up to 3% or up to 5% or up to 10%, however y'all want to do it, it's a standard to do an up 2%. It's a benchmark. It's not it shouldn't fluctuate. You know, this person is qualified for 5% and we're only going to give 1%. Having everybody at the same level prevents the demoralization of the staff that the body's referring to. And I can't name one town that I know of in the state that doesn't just do up to X%. It's a cleaner, more efficient way, and it doesn't have any negative effects on the staff.
Excuse me, but isn't this what we're doing, up to 3%?
Yeah,
Yes.
but I'm just,
So you're just talking to Rich's
Right.
suggestion, up to 5, some with 3.
Exactly.
right, that's what we're trying to clarify, is, you know, it's just cleaner and easier this way. And it doesn't have the harmful effects on staff that other methods have.
So we have to determine if the 3% is the correct number or
Right,
not.
that's what you need to question, not the method that we're doing, but.
So, in other words, so that I understand it, if someone doesn't get 3%, then no one can get more than 3%.
Right.
Correct.
Charlie?
If we have an employee that's not performing and wouldn't even get 1%, they're gonna be fired. I agree with Bonnie, everybody in this town works hard. If you're worried about someone getting more than someone else because their base pay is higher, and that's what would make their raise higher, 3% of 30,000 is more than 3% of 10,000. My point is, if you're worried about that, why don't we give everybody a same raise across the board of $2,000?
The salary schedule, the new salary grade schedule reflects the fact that we were not paying some people a living wage. So and it's 30,000 and change. But anybody who was below 30,000 is now upped to.
At least 30,000.
At least 30,000, correct.
And proportionally based on their current salary and their current classification up
Correct.
to the new classification. And then on top of that has the potential to earn up to 3% based on their performance.
And they go up to 30, and then they're still eligible for the 3%.
Correct.
Correct.
Well, they're at 30 now, correct?
No.
Not until you
There are
pass
some
this
people who
budget.
are not. Well, not our schedule.
But that's what we're gonna discuss to get that salary up to 30.
Right.
Okay.
Is this the time that we're developing a consensus on this particular issue, or are we going to do that later on in the 3-day process?
It could be. It's up to you all. You could. I would suggest we just get through the summary, and then you all tell me how you want to proceed. If we want to have that discussion now, because it does affect all the departments, or if you want to wait until you've,
Well, I think we have to have this done before the department heads come to us, because they don't know the direction to go. We have to give them direction.
well, not exactly, because the personnel section is cordoned off.
Yeah, the departments themselves don't have control over salaries and benefits. Anything that
But won't that
reflects.
affect their budget?
Well, yes,
It
but,
reflects a portion of their budget,
Right.
but not the stuff they're gonna come asking for,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
other than if they're asking for personnel.
Okay, I mentioned, so with the 3% merit would cost the town $68,900. That includes salaries and FICA. So the total hit, if you go with up to a 3% merit, would be basically $70,000.
That's loaded.
I'm sorry?
The benefits. That's loaded. That's a loaded number.
This is a pay increase, and FICA, not their,
Not the benefit. I mean, it's not the 40 or 41 or 42%. That's the base,
right.
but it's not the EB, employee benefits.
Correct, it's just the FICA portion of it.
Just the-
So in other words, what $68,900 represents is the increase in wages plus 7.65%, which is how much the FICA is. It does not include an increase in pension, because the pensions will be increased slightly, and,
Medical and all that.
well, no, the medical won't change, but the
Just the
pension will.
pension.
Yeah, and the 401K for police officers.
But isn't medical part of the employee benefits?
It is, but it's not governed, it is not affected by the wage that someone earns.
It's flat. It's the same for everyone.
Right, okay. So, as I said before, there were some departments, like town council, administration, finance, and public infrastructure, that have a net decrease in their budgets this year. So there's any increases are partially offset by 123,000 in decreases. Revenue, we've talked about briefly, the significant collections realized in fiscal 18 that were over and above the budget for fiscal 18 occurred in property taxes and local option sales taxes. So those have increased. Yeah. Well, if you recall last year, the local option sales tax was possibly going to be under the knife. The General Assembly had set its sights on changing the funding formula.
Last 2 years, right?
Right, last couple of years, and there's nothing like that in sight, according to the league.
Problem was 3 years ago or so, they increased the budget, they increased this expense, or they allocated another, I think, a 1.3 or 1.4%, expecting this, the sales tax formula change, and it never occurred.
Right,
So the taxpayers have been paying at 1.3% each year.
and getting services for it.
Causality of this 800, which is part of this 850,000, but I won't go there.
Already been there.
There's always the, you pay your money, you get your service. That's kind of even. Okay, and like I said before, the assessment for Cobia and North Shore road repairs, the road work is going to be done in this year, in fiscal 18, and once the total costs are known, the assessment will be assessed. The money will be, or the charges will be assessed to the people who benefit
The
from
money
their,
will return
so it
back.
crosses years,
Yeah,
right,
so it's a wash.
right.
How long do you give the homeowners to pay back?
I'm sorry?
How long do they have? 3 months?
when we get to that point.
So we have to talk about that this year, this budget, okay. What's the normal, Lisa? 3 months, 6 months?
3 years.
Oh, over years.
One time, it could be,
Do we give incentives to pay early?
Do we charge them interest?
yes and yes.
Okay.
In other words, it's up to the council.
Yep.
All right. Simple.
Great driving the bus.
It's up to Lisa.
Now we're richer on the wheel.
Okay, and then finally, the funding of the $611,500 for the stormwater management plan is proposed to come out of reserves, which this year will be increased by $850,000 due to a projected surplus. No, this budget anticipates no change up or down in the tax rate, property tax rate, and that's the end of the summary. So what you have is two department heads that have their departments to present to you today. We also have town council and administration, which is primarily Lisa, well, obviously Lisa and Hiram, and finance, which is me. These three budgets have a net decrease, so those will be pretty quick. The other two department heads, we can do them first.
So why don't we do those first so they can go through?
To that extent, Rich didn't know he was supposed to be in here today.
Really?
Yeah, he had an email from you saying Tuesday. So he's not, he's ready to do everything combined with Dustin at that time, because they still have to go over.
You're right.
That's
Yep,
fine.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot about that. 'Cause
So that's good, we
yeah.
have a quicker meeting.
So who's ready
Today.
So, building and inspections and planning.
Yeah, it can be me and Carrie first if you want us to.
Yeah, let's do Carrie and
Okay.
so you can get out of here.
And then you'll have
He's ready to
time
fall off his chair.
to talk about a variety of different
And
things.
If Hiram and I could ask a question that we should have asked in the beginning, for the Tuesday and Wednesday meetings, we will start at 9 a.m. Do you all want a catered lunch in, or are you gonna break for lunch and come back?
I think it's better if
Or
we
what?
break, I think it's better if we break for lunch, the taxpayers don't have to pay.
Yeah, we don't need to.
I prefer to stay in and do it.
Yeah, I don't want to cater lunch.
Okay, now?
So by catered, I mean somebody's gonna give us some food and bring it back.
I understand, but that's still,
Lisa would be our
In other
caterer.
words, John doesn't want to eat with that.
or Dustin.
I don't care if staff gets
No, I'm
lunch.
gonna bring my own peanut butter
Right.
jelly sandwich and
That's
eat
the-
right
yeah.
here.
I'll take one.
John, since staff is doing such a good job, if we could cater their lunch that day, I'm with that, I'm fine with that.
I mean, if we
Is that
wanna
okay,
cater
Charlie?
it, if we wanna cater it, it's fine. Then we just stay here and make it efficient in terms of not have a 2-hour lunch break and,
Right, I prefer to have it catered so we don't leave and come back. I mean, what's the cost?
Oh,
I-
me, I don't-
We're getting subs, right?
I don't,
If we do
it
that,
doesn't bother
well,
me one way or the other. But if we have it catered, we can't let Hiram pick up the pizza because he'll go to the wrong place.
See that, Hiram? No respect, brother,
wrong
no
place.
respect.
He doesn't agree with my choice of pizzas.
Or place.
okay. So
But-
I'll shift and say, yeah, let's go with catering.
Okay, that way we can feed the staff and the staff gets fed, the whole staff, all right? So make sure it's catered enough for everybody.
question on Wednesday, since the lunch is identified, or a time frame, so that police and fire are Wednesday. If we start with Chief Clammer in the morning, can we then let Richard Childress, Assistant Fire Chief Childress, know that he doesn't need to come in until 1 o'clock or
Absolutely.
something?
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you think the chief is gonna be 4 hours or 3 hours?
It's a
It's
possibility
up to
us.
that it'll be 3 hours.
yeah. He's there, yeah, once you review this weekend, when you review
Yeah.
what he's requesting.
Yeah, I
You
think
might-
that's fine, because
Okay, so-
Richard doesn't need to sit here for 3 hours and listen to about the
Okay,
police
so
budget.
1 o'clock for Richard then?
Is that okay,
Yeah,
guys?
because even if you finish up early, you can recess for lunch and then bring it back in at 1.
Okay. Great.
That's
And
fine.
it doesn't matter Tuesday because it's Dustin all day, Rich and Dustin in the
doesn't
morning.
matter.
Dustin all day? Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
Here, the only question that I have
Mm-hmm.
is, when I look at your increase, it's $90,000, so I'm making an assumption that you're gonna have to get a new truck, and you're gonna hire a person. Is that what you're,
Yes, sir.
just
Yep.
make it simple?
Yes, sir.
If I
Get a
may,
new truck,
But are you talking about the 85,000 in the summary?
Excuse me,
What
what
are we
section
doing?
is this
Yeah,
under?
where are
inspections and planning.
inspections.
inspections and planning.
Rich, if you look at the very first page of inspections and planning, there's the last column, each line item has an increase or a decrease from the fiscal 18 budget.
Oh, no, I know that.
And so you've got descriptions, explanations for every single one of those variances. Okay, so it's a variety of
So,
things.
Carrie,
But-
Can I ask
but-
a question?
Go ahead, John.
How are we planning to run this? Are you going to sort of make a presentation, give an overview of what you're doing, and then tell us what you're looking for?
I
I
think we
mean-
put it in the justification
Yeah,
for council.
we had intended for, just to say that what we wanted, the 2 items, basically, and then have y'all ask questions about the whole budget.
Yeah, but you're gonna talk first and tell us
Yes.
what
That
you
was
wanna
our
do.
intent.
Okay, and then so if we could ask questions, let them talk a bit and
Mhm.
put us all in the same sheet of music. So-
Go ahead.
Also, we're gonna start with the,
Start with the truck.
start with the truck first, okay? First of all, don't be deceived with the picture on the front of the, with the chrome package, because that's not exactly the truck. I think Hiram set me up on that,
Yeah, maybe.
but,
No mag wheels?
Yeah.
it's got wheels, it's got wheels, just not them wheels. So basically what we've got, last year, we had a 2007, the F-150 that we replaced with a new one, the last budget. And, I think it's been, from over the years, 10 years is about, is what we'd like to, turn them up and roll them over. As far as the depreciation, there's basically the numbers there and what you see. The mileage is low, but you gotta remember, these trucks, they take a lot of wear and tear. The service, if I pulled the service for the last 2 years on the vehicles, it's ironic, but both of them have the same exact problems. We have the same thing over and over for the last 2 years. And, so we're looking at the repair cost of what we've done since 16 at $1,835. And upcoming, possibly, that transmission may be a little low. The last one was $1,800 to put in the other truck. And you're looking at a Kelly Blue Book value of $7,650.
We're putting $2,000 into a car that's worth $7,600.
Correct.
Exactly. So we're right back in the same place we were last year. And like I said, I told you last year, next year, you know, you'd probably see me again asking for a vehicle. And like I say, we're constantly having problems with the truck anyway. But it's like I said, it's exceeded its value, you know, and it's time to be.
10 years old.
Yes.
Simply, how many trucks would you have in the planning department?
3.
You'll have 3.
Well, we'll have two trucks, and then there's the Escape that is shared with the planning department and administration. We take care of it, but administration gets to use it, go to class, goes to conferences, so our Ford Escape crosses departments. So we really have,
It's not a, yeah.
we have 2 vehicles that are used primarily in the service of inspections department.
So the third one would make it 3,
No, this is replacing
one of the cars.
one of those.
Okay.
So we'll still have 2 trucks
Okay.
and the Ford Escape.
Now, when you have an additional inspector, I mean, you rotate,
They'll most likely be using the Escape.
that's workable?
The Escape, yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And like I say, as far as I'm not for sure, you know, when the trucks go out and you know, and everything's sold off. But at this point, if you so choose that we can hire, then we'll probably keep that vehicle in service, minimum, just so the Escape won't be tied up. Because like I said, everybody's using it. It's like a town vehicle. So we definitely got to have 3 there at all times.
So in other words, you'll end up with 3 trucks, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Possible.
Possible,
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
But you know,
Because we can't really count on that truck lasting another year regardless.
the only thing I have a question about that, you see it running into a lot of maintenance problems, you know, like the Blue Book value is $7,600.
Yes, sir.
We're not gonna keep putting money down this
That's
hole.
right. We're not gonna throw good after bad.
So you're not gonna buy a new transmission for it?
We can run it to the ground if you'd like us to.
Just run it to the ground.
I mean, the last one, I looked back at the records and it was $1,850-some to put it in another truck.
As long as it's safe. If it's not safe, get rid of it.
So what's the process, Bonnie? Now we look together and say we approve him getting a car and hiring a inspector?
You can tentatively approve our department's budget,
Right.
and pending any final revisions, but,
Yeah.
that's y'all's call. I mean, you can go ahead and,
I
y'all
think-
y'all can go ahead and make the statement that we're good with X department, and we're not gonna touch them again, but my opinion, that's not really the best way to handle things. Best way is to go ahead and ask, you know, give us a yes or no definitively on these
All right.
major items. or
When
not.
when you hire a new inspector, what's his grade? I know there's different grades,
I'll
that
be
you folks
I'll be
have.
advertising for level 1.
a level 1.
Yes, sir, in a minimum of 2 classifications. And then to be able to attain probationaries in the other 2. So it'll be across the board, mechanical, building, plumbing, and electrical inspector. And I'll kind of go ahead and get into it now with it a little bit if we're gonna move over to this part now. If you
The only
say.
question I have is,
truck?
if we, sorry,
Are we finished with the truck?
I think we are finished.
Yeah.
with the truck.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So, I mean, one of your points was, do we have a general consensus that we think a new truck is justified at this point? It's not a final commitment, but there's no
An oversight, I
objections.
think that, you know, do we make a motion on that and vote, or?
You're going to approve the whole
think that we
thing,
need-
all of a piece.
I think we need
You-
a new truck.
I mean, this
Yeah,
is,
I
at
agree.
this point, as far as your
Yeah,
approval
yeah.
goes, it's informal,
It's- yeah,
because
it's
we have a long way to
consensus.
go.
Yeah, well, 5 said yes to it.
Yeah,
so.
it's
Right,
consensus.
but it's not like an action that gets recorded in
I
the
know.
minutes, we remember
But
it.
he'd like to know that, so the future, and so.
Exactly,
we're going for
exactly,
the
yeah.
Future.
I just want to make sure one thing, the state contract, the truck will cost 31,000.
I've got it, I'm boo-boo.
Give or take.
Yeah,
Yes,
I've
sir.
got 30.
And that's through state contract.
And the regular list is 39,800.
Yes, sir. Like right around, close to around $40,000.
Right, I'm good.
So that means you go through a state contracting agency to get it?
Yes,
or-
sir.
And so there's no dealing, you guys don't have to
There's
deal
no
with
haggle.
dealers and nothing like that?
No, sir.
Okay.
I've already submitted it out for bid and got that back. So, and it's somewhere in the same ballpark. I think it went up about $900 from the one from last year.
Okay.
So it's still in the
We have a
range.
consensus that, you know, we'll go forward with the truck, okay?
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And Carrie, I'll revise. I still had 30. I didn't change it.
Okay.
I forgot.
Okay, yeah, that came back after we prepared the budget.
See, the only thing I have questions about hiring a level 1, is he gonna go through training in school and all that?
He'll come in with some training, and that's, he's already got training to have a level 1 at that point. So, and then, like I said, as time goes on, then we'll have to push him through training and stuff.
Now, is there any, I'm sorry, Rich, but
No.
is there any way that, you know, I know Rich is gonna disagree with me on this, but if we put him through school, pay for all this, and all of a sudden, like we've lost several in the past, they go to
Commitment.
county for more money.
Yes, sir.
How can we restrict him to
Can't.
movement? Let me finish, Rich.
You can't.
Yeah, you can.
You
But
can't.
you can restrict them or pay back the class, the money we charge. for the-
That's actually needs to be taken up into a personnel policy.
Yeah. no,
It's nothing you wouldn't do that conditional employment upon that individual employee, because that's treating them different than every other class. But if you had the personnel policy that, and that's a much deeper, longer conversation, but it is possible. It's not particularly enjoyed by staff, because then they don't want to go out and branch out and get education, because then they're always afraid that what if something happens, and they do have that better opportunity to come up within an X period of time after, but
I
they
do
don't have the money
understand
to pay
that,
it
you know,
back.
what's
That's
happened in
served
the
to two.
past, what happened in the past is we've trained these people, and within
Really?
weeks, they go to the county for $6,000 more money, and we spent $12,000 training them for the county.
Well, that's,
Do we need to make that adjustment in our
no,
salaries?
no,
I think we do.
no.
Well,
No.
Why,
How do you feel about
what, how much more would it cost to hire grade 2?
To hire
No.
what now?
Great.
Level 2
Level 2.
certifications.
We're probably mid-50s,
I mean,
mid-50s.
what is more efficient for the operation? To hire a level 1 person, train them, they could leave, like anything else, everybody leaves. You can hire a level 2 person, we'd have to pay a little more, still may need some training. I mean,
Here's the thing, it's, the level 1, 90%, I'm gonna say 80%, because we've got some stuff in C-Trail. 80% of the inspections and the things that we are lacking right now is basically for a level 1 inspector. And that's why, and I think we've got our salary of around 46.2, which is a good salary to start out for a level 1 and to be able to keep somebody for some
a question
time.
for, why does the county pay a level 1?
The county is, I'm guessing, and from what I've heard, they're somewhere in that same range.
yeah.
Why is the county having so much turnover that they can take all our new people?
I can't say that
Well,
right
Brunswick County's in the same growth.
That-
They're the growth.
We are the
Yes.
largest growing county right
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
Second largest is Pender, so this entire southeastern portion of the state is booming, and there's a lot of work out there.
It really is, and there's no slowdown.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, you're stretched.
I'll
It's
tell you,
not
we-
necessarily the county, it's other,
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, and this is complete speculation. It could be burnout on some people's responsibility. It could be too much work and they want less stress.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
Oh,
a
this-
high stress field and a high responsibility field. And like Carrie's saying, we do need level 1 inspector because of what the large amount of the work that we need is just level 1 trade stuff. Going any higher than that, I don't think would be a good investment for the town at this point, seeing as how Carrie has his level 3s, Stanley has 2 2s and 2 3s. What we're lacking is just a little bit lower scale to handle out some of the grunt stuff.
that's, we have, I'm sorry, Charlie, were you speaking?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But if we hire level 1, the training and keeping up to date with your certifications and all, everybody does that. But if we hire a level 1, are we gonna train him to be a level 2?
Well, that comes with incentives. So that's, I think that's basically, I would prefer to bring him up to a level 2. I kind of like to do my own training, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so when I can bring them in green, so to speak, with a level 1, then we can kind of get him fit for the town. And then with some incentives for maybe for every certificate, a 1.5% increase is a common thing across across the state, as far as incentives. So we were getting the service done with the level 1. I think we'll be able to. And then if he's motivated and wants to go to a level 2, then there's an incentive there for him to become a level 2 inspector.
And the cost of those training isn't exactly the same as, like, you know, sending someone to like school and stuff that some places do. I mean, we'll get back the reward of the cost of training these individuals.
Absolutely.
We'll get the work out of them.
Well, I understand that. My concern was that here we go again, we're gonna be 2 months looking for another inspector after they leave, like has happened in the past.
Yeah.
But, I'm sorry, I had, other questions. What does the county pay a level 2?
It's probably 50s, mid-50s is my guess.
And is the county benefits package better?
I don't
Does
think it's,
anybody know?
I think the insurance is a little something, you know, I think they dropped off the spousal insurance last year or sometime, and
They put it on.
they put it back on. Okay, so maybe they're getting it back to, you know, like it was, but I think the benefits are pretty much
the same.
the same.
Is, correct me if I'm wrong, by either Bonnie or Lisa, the firemen, they go through this training and get another certification. Have they been getting their incentive increases?
No. We did away with that years ago, about 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago.
2012, the council suspended that policy.
Right.
So there's no reason for them to go ahead.
So what Kerry's talking about, we don't have that in our system anymore, where he can give 1.5%, 2% increases if they get certifications. All right, so that would be a change that we'd have to
But you
make.
could
Well,
move up to the next classification then, right?
Ma'am, well, he can still move up without an incentive, but it's always good to, you know,
And
to
that
have
could
that
also be
incentive
reflected
there.
in in the evaluation at the end of the year. I mean, there's a difference between a person who's satisfied where they're at and sits there versus a person who pushes forward and wants to do better, so. it's-
If you get the evaluation, if all we're gonna give is up to 3%,
But
What's-
Jan's comment about moving them up in their pay grade. If
Yeah,
you look at the salary schedule, which is under the expenditures tab,
Right.
the police officer firefighter trainee is at one level, and a full police officer firefighter is, 2 levels up. The building inspector currently only has 1 level, but there are 2 vacant levels above.
You could always bump up classification building inspector 1, building inspector 2.
Right.
And that's something we can revisit in either future budgets or personnel policy changes or classification changes, so
So rather than cash incentives that we're doing it, you do
scale incentives.
scale
Yeah.
approaches that go
Yeah.
up to do that.
Yeah.
When you go from a level 1 to a level 2, how much time does it take to do something like that?
About 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll have around 2 years, because you've got to get, one thing with us, with our certifications is we don't have buildings large enough to be able for them to qualify. And so as those buildings come, and sometimes they even have to go out into the county, or either different places to where they can inspect a school and have that on an application to be able to even set forward to even get it to take a test to get some of those standards. Fortunately, where I come from over in Whiteville, I had hospital, churches, schools, and was able to get 3s across the board, so.
Food line count as for level 2?
It'll count for level 2, but you have to have different occupancy classifications to be able to attain that stuff.
So in broad general terms, we hire a level 1, and the main incentive for him to go out someplace to get a level 2 job, and a big jump would be that we can sort of count on having that person around
Yes,
for about
sir.
2 years, until he or she has those qualifications to
Yes,
do
sir.
that, unless there's other job-related reasons that they want to leave.
True.
And that's it.
but we're paying for the classes or whatever needed to get,
Yes, sir, I think that's been the common practice from the years and what I look back at. It's typical, that the town does.
Yeah. The point is, we need another level 1 inspector.
Yes, sir,
No.
and the numbers reflected in the justification that I sent you, those numbers actually, they derive from over Hiram's reports and stuff for the last year. And some of those average numbers, basically, just to kind of give you a little rundown here, like on those average daily inspections is kind of deceiving. That's really not an accurate number. Those are you know, I'll give you for an example, if we go over and check a new house, well, we're actually doing about 5 inspections on that house.
Right.
You know, it's taking an hour and a half to 2 hours. And, you know, the mechanicals is a big driving factor in here. We done $40,000 worth of permits in just heating and air since April of last year. And we've done around 320 some mechanical inspections, and put an electrical on it, you might as well call it 600 inspections for just going out doing heat and air inspections. So that's the reason I'm looking for a multi-trade inspector to handle those kinds of things.
Okay.
Because during the summer, that really drives us up, and then it seems like after the summer's over, you know, we're slammed with that.
Yeah, no, I think it's, from the numbers, I mean, it's quite obvious that everything is related, and maybe even some of the training is related to a new building inspector in the
Yes, sir.
truck. The only question that I have that I'd like to at least have some clarification, under contract services, what do you contract out? It says here, I don't know if this is this the GIS system? I mean, I'm confused.
Permit, that's all
Yeah.
There's
financial,
a-
Bonnie, okay.
Yeah, there's, on contract services, John has requested a list of all the
No,
contracts.
I saw that, yeah.
And I'll have that for you next week.
Okay.
Each department carries a load particular to its department, but a lot of them are similar, like copiers and printers. We pay a support contract to keep those up. They're a portion of the janitorial custodial services.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I
So this,
I don't understand why those are spread out to all, I mean, you think it would be easier from an accounting point of view to have all those cleaning expenses stored in one account. I don't know why you spread them out into.
it depends on your point of view, which is
Yeah,
easier.
no, I know, I'm not gonna get into
It's
it.
basically an accountability issue, not an
I
accounting
know.
issue.
Yeah, but anyway, this is really not the same, right, right,
But for
right.
our contract services, the GIS system for my department, that's what that Esri GIS license support is to maintain our annual subscription to utilize the software, get the updates, get the packets, and get the customer support. The hardware lease, and then everything else, I believe, is part of the software package for Black Mountain and a few other things, right?
No, actually, the Black Mountains just resides in finance.
I thought our permitting software came out of ours.
Right, but it's not costed out.
I might
Yeah.
be-
I
I
mean, it
might
could
be-
be, but it's not currently.
I may be asking the wrong question, don't take it the wrong way. Is that a wet elephant, or is it really necessary? Because there was a debate about that system 4 years ago, or what, 3 years ago?
The GIS mapping?
Yeah, because I think the town used the counties before, if I'm not mistaken.
We still use a portion of the county's system to do
You
some
do.
daily functions, but in order to do the
Good.
manipulations, and in order to give accurate maps when I'm doing presentations and whatnot, or when I'm looking up stuff specific to layer files that aren't on the county system, I do need this system. Like, take the new map layers for the flood. I don't have any way of looking at that on the county system. I have to import it into our system so that I can overlay the parcel files onto it to see what someone's house is gonna do individually, because with the new maps online, still don't show everyone's,
Yeah.
it doesn't have an accurate aerial.
I mean, has it
So-
proven to be cost effective?
I agree, I think it is, yes. That's not an expensive cost for for what it is, believe me.
Okay. No, I'm fine.
Yeah, well, stormwater's got a separate one. so.
Right.
And it'll be more, I will say it'd be more beneficial for stormwater, their system is.
Yeah.
For mine, it's just more convenient.
Yeah.
We would actually have to incur engineering fees if we had to do some of the things I do with it. So
Yeah.
it may seem like a cost, but it is a beneficial cost.
Yeah.
But if you didn't have it, it'd be more cost somewhere else.
Yeah, I'd be having to contract a few things out.
Right.
Yeah.
Or just not provide a better service.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions, guys? We have a consent. We have
This is probably a
consensus?
good
Just
time.
one, when I look at the bottom line here, the 90,000 increase, that's pretty much covering the employee in the truck.
It's all the things in
Yeah.
the third column.
But yes, pretty much it's a new employee in the truck.
Okay.
But yeah, there's some things that got cut out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's mostly the new employee in the truck.
Yeah.
Yes.
Predominantly.
Thank you.
And just kind of, the total here, just to kind of get you up to speed, Right now, we've received $402,685 in permit fees as of today.
This fiscal year.
How much?
$402,685.
Well, I think that's, I mean, so in other words, you're running a surplus?
Can't say that.
Yeah.
We have any other
In other
questions?
words, the income that you generate is greater than the expense that you generate.
It's pretty close to
It's
it, but,
pretty close.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to raise any rates, any fees, or anything of that.
No, we're not
No,
looking to
no,
change our
sir.
fees.
No, we're in line with our permit fees.
All right, good.
Any other questions? Do you have a consensus?
Yeah,
If y'all just say the whole, yes to our budget right now,
Yes.
we're good.
I'll
We'll
get
see
up and
it.
leave right now. Yeah.
once you get a yes, don't hang around.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
leave
Yeah.
quickly.
I've watched you.
Take a vote and leave quickly. Because Laurie wants to go home, so.
Any more questions for us?
No, who's next?
All right, thanks.
You all
Thank
are.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bonnie, who's next?
Thank you. You all are town council.
You're kidding me.
I propose a 20% raise to all the council members.
Thank you, guys.
Where does that come from?
Admin. No,
Oh.
it comes out of town council.
Your budget, whoops. Your budget is 13,800 less. Your proposed budget is
You did some
town
shifting,
council.
right?
It's the third tab in.
Bonnie, you must have did some shifting because we still have,
Want to explain, go ahead, continue explaining.
Rich was mid-sentence. So the biggest reduction, one of the biggest reasons your budget has been reduced is because we don't have an election this year. That's easy. That's $3,200. So a couple of small things. The advertising is less because the dredging, we anticipated last year that the dredging, that notices would be sent out for announcing various things, public hearings, et cetera, for dredging. That didn't happen. So this budget does not assume it will happen in 19. If it does happen in 19, it'll be a budget amendment.
it should happen.
Okay? So it's
So-
not in there now.
I think it may be
Okay?
wise to put it in, because we're not going to wait another year without a survey. Or the other question that I have is, when we hire the town administrator and then may have to hire a fire chief, let's say we have to use a contract service or employment person, is that budgeted in the town council, or is that budgeted under administration?
Administration and
Okay.
fire.
Okay.
And they're not, well, when we get there, well, actually, this is probably a good time to tell you that they would be budgeted under administration and fire. However, because you do not currently have, what happens now with the town administrator's salary? It's budgeted at a full level.
Right.
But it is not currently being costed at a full level, because part of the planning department, planning director part of Hiram's salary
Right.
is in inspections and planning, and the additional that he gets is in administration.
Right.
So
Yeah, yeah.
So the amount, the full amount that's in there for a full-time town administrator will eat up the difference between the
Yeah.
portion that Hiram gets and the advertising,
Yeah.
or the consultant.
For
So
example, in
it's-
fiscal year 19, in your budget for the town administrator, you have the whole year.
Correct,
Yeah. We may not use it all, but it's there.
correct. And the time that you're paying, the time that you're taking to choose a town administrator.
Right.
Paying the contractor is time that is not going to pay a town administrator.
Right.
So, it's same thing in fire. The
Right.
fire chief's full salary is in there.
That's right.
Okay,
And it should be.
yep. The one other change is dues and subscriptions. The League of Municipalities dues, the Council of Government dues, and the North Carolina Beaches, Inlets, Waterways Association dues used to be part of the administration budget. I moved them over to the council budget because they're it's more a reflection of the council's use. John also asked, in addition to the list of contract services, John also asked for a list of dues and subscriptions we're paying, which I'll provide next week, and also professional services, where that line,
Good.
the big users of that line are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have any, I don't have any questions regarding this.
I don't either.
I'm
John?
good.
I'm good.
Okay?
Oh, come on, you don't want a
Are we in
vehicle?
consensus?
Let me get y'all cars.
Don't laugh, they did in Southport. One to share. It's
All
pretty
right, who can leave
snazzy, though.
now?
Mark?
Really.
Who's next?
Mark,
Administration.
Administration.
Mark, can we take a 5-minute break?
Yes, right now we take a 5-minute recess, please. We'll be back at 3:30. Be 8 minutes.
Potty break. Cookie break.
Oh,
Any left?
not when he goes in there.